Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:06. It's Thursday. It's the last day of October. It's Halloween Day, and we're here for it in every possible way. Coming up at 6:05, Jason Sneed, Executive Director of the Honest Elections Project. 6:35, Heather Fletcher, running for Frederick County School Board. 7:35, Monsignor Stephen Rossetti. Is Halloween really a evil, pagan, Satan-worshipping day? We'll talk to the Monsignor about the real origins here of All Hallows Eve. Also at 8:05, doing a victory lap, your Attorney General, Virginia, Jason Miyares, just won for the good guys about election integrity at the Supreme Court. And then at 8:35, KT McFarland. Alongside me this last opportunity before Election Day is my friend, your friend, America's sweetheart, Mercedes Schlapp. Good morning, Mercedes.
So I finally got your Christmas gift. I'm so excited.
Oh, really? Oh, do you
Yeah.
want to tell me, or does it have to be a surprise?
You got to kind of guess. It's not wine. What do you think it is?
Well, if it's not wine, I honestly have absolutely no idea. Let me see, a red power tie. I know you always want me to wear the red power tie.
A red Trump power tie. That would be great. Right. No, I'm thinking the orange vest. I think that would be a fabulous Christmas gift.
An orange garbage man vest is exactly what. And
Yes.
good luck finding one, because there's going to be a run at all the stores. Mercy, as you know, you've worked on how many campaigns have you worked on? Presidential campaigns, multiple presidential campaigns,
multiple.
And a presidential campaign oftentimes is boiled down to certain moments, certain images, certain events. And you and I were together on what I thought was going to be the iconic moment and image of this presidential election, the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, when he emerged from behind that podium with blood smeared on his face and his fist raised up, telling the crowd to fight, 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 as the Secret Service escorted him hurriedly off that stage. I remember standing next to you looking at that on my phone as it happened, and that's embedded in my mind as just such an important moment. But honestly, last night, when Donald Trump arrived for his rally, when he got off of Trump Force One wearing an orange safety vest like a sanitation worker and climbed into the cab of a garbage truck.
I love it. I just love it so much. I can't get enough of it.
And then he rolled down the window and took questions from the press. He conducted a press conference sitting in a garbage truck, Mercy.
Okay, so contrast that to Kamala Harris in front of the ellipse. The angry woman basically condemning Donald Trump, calling him a tyrant, mentioning his name 24 times with literally no vision for America other than Joe Biden basically outstaging her, outperforming her that night with his garbage comment. And then Donald Trump, I got to say, this is where the campaign's been so brilliant. They come in and literally they mention it to the president. Hey, do you think we get a garbage truck and, put on this orange vest? And Trump is all in. He's yes, yes, and yes.
Well, can we add, because then he drives to the rally, and then he emerges on stage wearing the vest.
With the orange vest.
He's got his $500 dress shirt on with the French cuffs and the gold cufflinks. He's got the red power tie.
The red tie, because he doesn't take off the red tie, which is hysterical.
So I don't know how much of this we could get in, but it's worth just letting it happen. Because if anyone missed this last night, and I know the network and cable news didn't lay out the entire part of the rally where he sort of told the story of how this all came to be, but it's worth listening to. So let's just let Trump, on this 31st day of October, this Thursday before Election Day, let's just let Trump be Trump for a minute.
So this outfit, is when he called us all garbage. How stupid. What a stupid word. That blows deplorable away, don't you think? Of course, I thought irredeemable when she said deplorable or irredeemable. I thought irredeemable was actually worse, but deplorable seemed to catch up. But this garbage stuff blows it away. So I'm in this beautiful plane. I'm enjoying myself. Have a wonderful suit on.
I have a wonderful suit on.
And one of my people came in and said, "Sir, the word garbage is the hottest thing right now."
Garbage
out
is
there.
trending.
The hottest thing out there, sir. Would you like to drive a garbage truck? Now, we're about, 30 minutes from landing. We had to do this pretty quick. I said, it's sort of cool, though, isn't it? Because, And I said, I think that's okay, but, I don't feel comfortable wearing a suit. And they pulled up this garbage truck. I don't know how the hell they did it so fast. I have very capable people. They put a big sign on the truck. Did you see it? I think they showed it.
We're going to spend time on this, but this is a good moment to tap it. Mercy, when they come up with this idea while they're in the air, tell me who has to be mobilized to get the truck at the target.
Okay, so the president has an advance team, and I've got to tell you, I know many of them. They're amazing people. They literally are the ones who execute. So not only did they have to find the garbage. Okay, think about it. This all happened last night with Joe Biden, and it looks like, where he said basically that the Trump supporters are garbage.
Of course, the media,
the media, of course, says that that Biden appears to say that the Trump supporters are garbage. But when you listen clearly to what
we
Biden
know exactly
said,
what he said.
My
favorite ones are the ones who said, "Oh, you're missing the apostrophe. We can hear the apostrophe." It was
the apostrophe is because his team at the White House cleaned it up and added the freaking apostrophe. It's come on. He made it very clear what he said. So they called it a tongue slip. The media is defending Joe Biden. But here's the deal. The advance team has to find a garbage. Like, they have to call and say, hey, it's a Trump campaign. Can we borrow your garbage truck? And then on top of that, then they have to wrap it with the Trump 47. Think about this. This all has to happen in less than 24 hours. Then on top of that, you got to find a freaking orange vest. Tell me where you're going to find this orange vest, because I'm looking for it right now, because I think I want to dress up like Trump at night for Halloween.
Is this your Halloween costume
there's
today?
So many factors happening at once to execute this in less than 24 hours. Wow, hats off to the presidential advance team. That was
honestly the fact that they could do this makes me feel like they really could, come in and immediately fix everything that Kamala broke.
Yeah.
All right, a little bit more from Trump last night.
And then they said, "Sir, we have a vest." I said, "Well, should I leave my suit on and put it over the vest? But that doesn't look very good, right? That doesn't look good." So I said, "All right, look, let me take it off." And then I actually said, I climbed into the truck, but so I said, "How the hell do you get into this truck? It's way up high. It's a big one." This was a beauty. I said, "You didn't have to buy it that big, right? You have to get it that big?" They brought this brand new, gorgeous truck, wonderful driver. He looked like Cary Grant in his prime. You know who that is? This beautiful driver. And he drove that big thing up. And I said, "Man, this is bad, because now I have all the cameras are all what? Look at all the fake news. They were most of them."
All right, a little bit more of Trump's story here, because it really is honestly one of the most genuinely hilarious moments of this campaign, just a few days out. And yes, one of my favorite images, Mercy, is there was a wide shot of all of the media with their cameras in front of this truck next to this truck,
having to do the press conference right by the garbage truck with the president with the freaking orange vest on. I mean, you cannot make it up. Like, it went so viral. Like, I just
what
was
a
like,
time
no,
we're living in.
He's not in a garbage truck. Like, how do I not think this creatively? Of course he's in a garbage truck.
And meanwhile, Kamala won't give any press conference or talk to the media, let alone sitting in a garbage truck.
Well, when she's doing the interviews, it's all so bland. It's all so bland and so there's nothing inspirational.
It's scripted. It's what she's memorized. All right, more of Trump telling because we haven't even gotten to the decision to wear the orange vest onto the stage for the rally. That now the story really gets good.
That's a whole story.
And you'll hear that
whole story.
You'll hear that next from President Trump last night. First, though, it's 5:15. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Last night, Green Bay, Wisconsin, Donald Trump touches down, decides to send a message to all those who are watching, especially those whom in this country, half of whom who are supporting him for president, who the sitting president, Joe Biden, just referred to as garbage. The vice president running as president did not do anything to admonish or disavow those statements. In fact, they and the propaganda media continue to lie and try to tell you that what you heard isn't what you heard. But we all know what we heard.
That's crazy.
Joe Biden called us garbage. Right. So he decides that he'd show up at Green Bay, Wisconsin, donning a orange trash man's vest, get into a garbage truck, emblazoned with Trump Make America Great Again 2024 on the side. And that's how he arrived in Green Bay for his rally. By the way, introduced by Green Bay icon hero Brett Favre, quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. And I think two-time Super Bowl champion for the hometown crowd. That's only one Super Bowl for Brett Favre, sorry. But still, for Green Bay, that's a lot.
But more than you have.
Thank you. As I'm wearing my Lions shirt today. Thank you, Mercedes. We're getting this is our year. Anyway, Trump gets up on stage still wearing the orange vest, and it goes like this.
Now, most of them, many of them were there, and I'm saying, oh, boy. You know, one little mistake with these guys and your political career is over. You can't even. So I said, man, if I don't get up there, this is going to be very embarrassing. These stupid people, they'll say, he's cognitively and physically impaired. And I can't do that when I'm alongside of this great athlete. I got to get up to that. So look, the first stair is like up here. I'm saying, shit. So.
Sorry, didn't know
so
we said
I had
that.
the adrenaline going, and I made it. I made it. And then I gave a little news conference from the front of the, they asked their wise guy questions and everything. And then we drove about 2 feet. I got out, got into the plane. And then I got in the car, and I'm driving over here, and I have this still on. And I come into the arena, and I say, where's my jacket? I want to get out of this thing. And they said, it would be unbelievable if you could wear it on stage. I said... And I said, no way. I got 25,000 people standing outside. I got all these people here. There's no way I'm wearing it on stage. They said, oh, okay, sir. I said, get me my jacket. But if you did, it actually makes you look thinner. I said, oh. And they got me. I said, I want to wear it on stage. When they said I look thinner,
I don't know what to tell you. I know this campaign needs to be about tax policy, and it needs to be about border security, and it needs to be about spending.
Yeah. But here's the deal, Larry. Like, we know where President Trump stands on all of his policies. He was on Joe Rogan for 3 hours. Like, the man, yes. He is very clear every time he does any of these speeches, anytime he interviews with anyone, he goes and explains his vision for America. The fun part about it is he is adding a lot of the word joy. He's the happy warrior right now. It is the happy campaign. It is like the cool place you want to be. Like, you know what I mean? You're like, what are you going to join? The angry people on the left, or do you want to join the happy people on the right? And look, I've seen a transformation in him personally. I've seen a transformation just in how he has decided he's going to focus his energy, how he's going to enjoy his time. Like, you could tell he's relishing these moments. Like, you could just tell.
Do you think, fun to... I'm interested in that, if I could. You see a transformation. Do you think it's July 13th? Do you think it was the bullet?
100%. 100%. I think he's a changed man. Like, look, when I saw him 2 weeks ago and we were in Miami, I almost choked up because he came up to me, and normally, I don't know, normally we'd talk about him, or I'd start talking about him, and he just looked at me, he goes, Mercedes, he goes, are you okay? Are you doing okay? I was like, why is he asking me if I'm doing okay? Like, it was the sweetest, like, it was about me. And I was like, no, this is not about me, sir. Like, this is about you and making sure we win. You know what I mean? But he wanted to know, like, Is the family okay? What's going? Like, he was so concerned about my well-being, and I was like,
heightened
"Sir,
empathy,
you're running for
heightened
president,
empathy.
and they almost killed you twice. Like, let's be
Well,
real."
funny you
know
should
what I
say
mean?
that. As much as fun as we're having hearing the story about the orange vest, actually the most powerful moment last night is when President Trump, and I think it's something that a lot of people like when he does this, and wish he does it more. He made it about us. He made it about, just like that moment with you, Mercedes, where he made it about you. Listen to this.
Kamala and Joe call all of us, and them, even them, garbage. I call you the heart and soul of America. You are the heart and soul. You built our country. You know, you built our country. You built it. Far more than they built it, I can tell you that. You built it. And by the way, I want to thank all of our incredible sanitation workers all across America.
It is 5:24. It's 5:37, Mercedes Schlapp.
What are you
I'm
doing?
Larry
Like reading
O'Connor.
the news, or like, just distracted with the world?
I'm looking at my data. I'm looking at my polls. I'm trying to crunch these
Yeah,
numbers.
you're very excited about the data. Tell me about the data.
We'll get to the details in a sec. Real fast, I want to let everyone know that it's 6:05. Jason Sneed from the Honest Elections Project. 6:35. Heather Fletcher. She's running for Frederick County School Board. 7:35. Monsignor Stephen Rossetti from the Washington, D.C. Archdiocese. He's the official exorcist for the Archdiocese on this All Hallows Eve. At
I'm a big
8:05,
fan.
Virginia Attorney General Jason Myers. You like the exorcist there in D.C.?
Let me tell you, I just did a whole podcast. Amber Duke sent me this great podcast with this exorcist. It was so fascinating. Yeah.
Oh, we're definitely in spiritual warfare. If you don't see it, you're not paying attention for sure. 8:35, KT McFarland. All right, to the polls. I mean, at this point, Mercedes, it all starts to sort of become so many numbers and so much data to try to crunch. And honestly, so much early voting has already taken place. Election day is so close. You almost feel like, at this point, it's sort of locked in. The cake is baked, as they say, and now you just got to let the game play out. That said, we have a couple of new developments overnight. The most significant ones, I think, when I went to Real Clear Politics and checked out the latest on the electoral map, as I do every morning, there's been a change. Not in the 7 states that we've all been talking about, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. They're still listed as toss-ups, although if you look at the numbers, it appears as though some of those states are really solid in the Republican column right now, almost to the point of being outside the margin of error. The big change, though, the big change that I'm seeing is the states of New Hampshire and, stunningly, Tim Walz's home state of Minnesota have now been moved into the toss-up column as well. These states have been leaning blue for the whole time, and they usually do go blue for the Democrats.
Right.
Minnesota hasn't gone for a Republican since 1972. But those 2 states have now moved into toss-up, which, again, who knows how this ends up, Mercedes, but that's a trend. The trend is things have been moving in the Republican direction.
Yeah, well, I mean, the momentum, the trend clearly on Donald Trump's side. I think the reality, look, I remember back in 2020 when we did a ton of campaigning. I spent a lot of time in New Hampshire for Donald Trump, and also the Rust Belt states, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. And I remember there was always this talk of, can we get Minnesota? Now, 2020 was a different election because of the COVID pandemic, but I do think, Minnesota's is tough. It's a tough state. It's always kind of like that Jesse Ventura type of state where you don't know. They do lean left, and I think it's going to be tough to.
Well,
it's going to be tough.
I'm not saying they should spend money or try
states.
to win Minnesota. What I'm saying is
but
trend
it's
nationally seems to be moving.
But
it shows
here's
that
the
she's
thing.
got soft spots.
He's just got to win one Rust Belt state and win Pennsylvania, obviously with everything else coming in. I mean, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona. I think that the Republican Party is in a much stronger position in North Carolina and Georgia. What we've seen is, at least coming out of the Trump campaign, that the Democrats are not reaching their numbers, their goals in early voting in North Carolina and Georgia. I think in Arizona, President Trump's in a pretty strong position. But it is winning one of those 3, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan. I think the likelihood of winning a Wisconsin or Michigan is probably higher than a Minnesota, in my opinion.
Let's get to cut 9 here. Harry Enton, he's the guy who plays Steve Kornacki over at CNN. he had a different take on the polls after daily reports on the polls. And all he does is tell all the CNN viewers what the polls are saying and how important the polls are. And then yesterday he decided to tell everybody, these polls are probably not accurate. Listen.
Poll after poll after poll show just how exceedingly tight this presidential race is, according to polls, especially in critical battleground states. Polls, of course, are not 100%. Far from it. CNN senior data reporter Harry Ensign's at the magic wall. Harry, some polls in past races have been way off the mark. Why?
Why? Because as I say here on this slide, polls are a signal. They ain't Nostradamus, my dear friend. They ain't Nostradamus. They take a sample of the population. You don't necessarily know who's going to turn out and vote on Election Day. And so I want to put in some simple stats for you, get your audience to understand that polls are far from perfect. All right. So how much was the average state polling average missed by since 1972 in the key battleground states? Well, the average error is 3.4 points. My goodness gracious, all the polls right now are well within the poll averages in the key battleground states. How about your quote-unquote margin of error, that you're 95% confidence interval? It's even wider than that. Get this, 5% of polls in the key battleground states, those polling averages, get this, missed by more than 9.4 percentage points. So even if you have, say, a 6-point lead in a key state, that ain't necessarily safe.
All right. First of all, as a broadcaster, he says ain't way too much for my taste. But that said,
I heard that. Yeah.
But Mercy, I mean, you've been on these campaigns. How maddening is this? Is that you live and die on these polls, and then here we are, right on the cusp of the election, and says, oh, by the way, the polls are usually always wrong. So what are we supposed to make of that? The only thing that I'll add to it, though, is that, yes, he's right. I've witnessed it. The polls are always wrong, around 3% or more. But it's always in one direction. It's always in favor of the Democrats. You look 8 years ago, these polls showed that Hillary Clinton was winning Michigan on this day by 6.3 points. Trump ended up winning Michigan. Biden was up by 8 percentage points 4 years ago, and he ended up winning it by 1.5 points. So, yes, they're wrong, but they're usually wrong over in that direction.
Yeah, no, and look, I think the key is first of all, I do think that the man, he was right in saying you don't know what's going to happen on Election Day, but we are what you're seeing with the early voting numbers has shifted considerably in favor of the Republican Party in North Carolina, in Georgia, in Arizona, in Nevada. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think those are very promising signs. Okay, but I come from the school where I was told by. Wait,
go ahead.
But I was told I was brought up, right, where I would have the top campaign officials coming to me and we would have these conversations day of the election saying, we're going to win Wisconsin. We are so these were internal polls. These were people on the ground. And then we lost Wisconsin in 2020. So what I'm saying is I'm more traumatized about this. So I really am very careful when we move forward on the polls. My philosophy has been you run like you're 10 points behind. You go after every single low propensity voter. You go after every single registered Republican. And your goal is to get that independent voter, which is what's interesting in a state like Minnesota, because Trump is leading. This was back in September amongst independents in Minnesota, about 40% compared to Harris's 23%. But look, this is not easy. That's why I'm very careful. But the one poll that stood out to me was something that the CNN analyst shared, which was that only 28% of Americans believe that America is on the right track. No incumbent has ever won with those sort of numbers. I'm going to repeat that again. 28% of Americans believe America's on the right track. That means super vast majority believe we're headed on the wrong track. We're headed in the wrong direction. That to me is a very telling poll in the sense that you've never seen an incumbent win with those numbers.
You're right.
And I'm
right
assuming
track,
Harris
track.
is the incumbent, but come on.
Absolutely.
Seriously.
Right track, wrong track has been the most consistent number all year, regardless of whether the candidate is Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. The majority of Americans think we're on the wrong track, and that is really bad for them. I 100% agree with you on that. One other quick item that I would say on these polls, there's a huge number of voters who are not counted in any of these polls. That's everyone who is newly registered and intends to vote, because they don't show up in all the likely voter polls. They're brand new registrations, and the data shows that Republicans have outdone Democrats in new registration. Now, that doesn't mean those new registrations will actually vote, and it doesn't mean they'll necessarily vote Republican, but it's definitely another good sign. 545. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes first on the 5s.
Weeknights with Mark Levin, 6 to 9 p.m.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
All right, let's get to cut 10 here. Harry Enton, again, he's the person who plays the part of Steve Kornacki for the CNN audience. It's the same job, same role, same character. He's got a different accent, different wardrobe. He explains exactly how the maps are set up and the polls are set up that this election could be an absolute blowout. For whom? Well, for either. Cut 10.
We have an average polling miss, and the polls are understating Kamala Harris, and she benefits from an average polling miss. Well, what happens? Well, she carries all these Great Lake battleground states. She carries the key states down in the southeast. She carries Nevada and Arizona out here in the southwest. And she gets to get this. It's a blowout. It's a relative blowout, Jake. It's 319 electoral votes for Kamala Harris compared to 219 electoral votes for Donald Trump. Of course, we remember the last two times, right? We remember 2016. We remember 2020 when the polls understated Donald Trump. What happens if the polls do that again and we have an average state polling miss that benefits Donald Trump? Well, get this. Donald Trump gets up to 312 electoral votes. He's the one that gets over 300 electoral votes. Why? Because he carries all the Great Lake battleground states, he carries the southeast battleground states, and he carries Nevada and Arizona out here in the southwest. The bottom line is poll after poll after poll have shown this race to be way too close to call. But polls are imperfect. If we have an average polling miss, don't be surprised if either Kamala Harris wins easily, or in the case of this battleground map, Donald Trump wins rather easily, Jake.
All right. So, Mercedes, what's at play here? Is this CNN basically just trying to sort of soft pedal all the news for their viewers and get them prepared for...
I'm kind of obsessed with the guy's accent. I just love it. What does it remind you of? It's like...
You know what? You're not the only one.
All the battleground states.
You know what's funny? Jonah Goldberg, who we give a hard time to a lot for his political analysis.
I don't like him at all.
I don't either. But he was on set, and he made an observation not having to do with anything with politics.
He's an anti-Trumper.
That is actually worth listening to, though. Here, listen.
I just realized that Harry Enton sounds like a 1930s Hollywood gangster movie character. You see? Yeah, you see? I've never noticed it before. I was mesmerized.
That's
there
fantastic.
You go. See, Jonah brought something to the table there. Hey, you ain't going to do that to me. You hear that, you dirty rat? Arizona's going to go the other way. Then what are you going to do? I feel like this is CNN sort of prepping their audience for a letdown. I could be wrong, but I just feel like they said, Harry, our guys are getting way too depressed. You got to tell them that Kamala could win in a blowout. Oh, all right, I can do that for you if I need to.
Well, but okay, Larry, this goes back to my point, right? We're looking at the polls. I think for me, what I'm relying my information on is momentum is on our side. The trend is going towards Donald Trump. Absolutely. I do like where the early voting numbers are in many of these states. You look at Nevada, so 15% of those voters that have come in are new voters, early voters. These are people that have been identified as low propensity voters that are going to vote Trump. These are good signs. There are some good signs that I'm definitely seeing.
About the early voting, and I was trying to ask you this earlier, but you were on a roll. Is the early voting that we're seeing from Republicans that we don't usually see, is that, though, cannibalizing the reliable day of voting? Because we're expecting day of to be a big Republican day. Right. But if everybody's voted early, then will day of not be a big Republican day?
Look at me. You're comparing it to the Democrats. Okay. You're comparing it to the Democrat numbers. So when you're looking at the Democrat numbers for early voting, these people are not. Democrats are traditionally early voters. Republicans are not. So you're seeing a shift in behavior, and so the shift in behavior is I think really showing this enthusiasm coming from the Republican side. There's a lack of enthusiasm coming from the Democrat side in states like Nevada and Pennsylvania. Right now, by today, in Pennsylvania, there would have been over 1 million Democrats who have voted. I believe the numbers, and this is off the top of my head, and I'll double check. It's probably like at 300,000, 400,000. Wow. Really low numbers of early voters going out.
And that's not, and that's, well, I just assumed that was COVID. I just figured because it's not COVID, people are not, I just figured the big numbers last time was because of COVID and people were afraid of getting sick, so they voted early, and this year they're not.
They could have, but normally, even before COVID, the Democrats are traditionally early voting.
You're right.
constituency.
All right.
Contingency.
I think we've learned something in this entire exercise. Constituency.
Thank you.
We
can't
have
speak English.
learned something in this exercise, examining the numbers, and that is
what.
Well, we don't really know what's going to happen on Tuesday,
We don't know what's
but
gonna happen.
we do
it
know
feels good,
that
but I hate when we look at
everyone needs
the
to vote.
feeling thing. Yeah, everyone needs to vote. And I remember during Romney's campaign, there was a call with one of their main senior campaign team, and we were part of the surrogate work operation, and they literally kept saying things feel good. They quote unquote feel good in North Carolina and Florida. And what happens when things feel good? Romney lost North Carolina and Florida. So I'd never go by feelings, go by numbers, go by what's on the ground. That's what matters. And the polls reflective of where things can be, but doesn't dictate exactly where we are.
You know what? And one last, if I may, that's great. And I love your insights like that. I just want to say one thing that we should all, because I always like to leave things with a positive, hopeful note.
Oh,
Isn't
whatever.
it wonderful? No. Isn't it wonderful in this election that we're not talking about Florida at all? We don't have to worry about Florida.
And
Isn't it
Give
amazing?
credit to your guy, Governor Ron DeSantis. I mean, he did a really good job.
Stop it with. I thought we left that behind us.
Go
it's 5:55.
Trump.
WMAL traffic and weather. Let it go.